No, I haven't done that one either. We're gonna roll the dice. Is that the right? We're just gonna roll the dice. See what happens. Okay, let's dive in here. Let's say a prayer first. Who'd like to say a prayer? Any volunteer for prayer? Blessings? Who needs blessings? Cody with the blessings. Thank you, Cody. Appreciate it.
Dear Father, in this day and opportunity we have to be your class, Father, I simply bless us to gain the knowledge that we need to finish the project today and also to advance knowledge. Father, we love you so very much for the opportunity that we have to be here on a church-sponsored campus.
Amen. Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's talk about arrays. Who can use arrays? Raise your hand. Nice. Yeah, every time I look at my paycheck, I feel like I could use a raise. Jared got it. Hey, there's not too much humor in this. You got to take what you get. You know what I mean? Thanks, Branch. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. More extra credit. Right. There's a line there. There's a difference. You got to be careful. You gotta be a little careful. Arrays. So what are arrays? Let's see. What's one of the best ways to describe an array? It's like in a collection. I see before me an array of students, a wonderful array of students. No, no. A wide variety. Perfect. Perfect. In fact, I'm going to write that down. That's like really good. A wide variety. Arrays are used in all programming languages. I mean, they're pretty prolific, right? They've been around for a long time. And so when you learn about arrays in VBA, that's a pretty high level skill, right? When you say, oh yeah, I can do VBA and I can do arrays in VBA, if people don't know what that is, and you will at the end of today, you are in the next level. You're at the next level. You know what I mean? I mean, this is like, you can put this on your resume. I know arrays in VBA. Most people won't recognize it, but it's pretty neat. I mean, you could if you wanted to. The power, and we'll see some of this power, is pretty strong. This gives you even more power dealing with variables. Specifically, an array is a wide variety of variables. It's a lot of variables. So let me show you how this works. And what we're going to do today, let's go ahead and download our file here for creating and using arrays. And here's our Starwood 2 example. Let me download this file. I'll save it on the computer. And then I will open the folder and right click on it and do my unblock in the properties so that I can enable. And then I'll just open it up. And let's see, what do we have here? We have some properties. We have a list of hotel properties. Looks like all over California, Washington, some Georgia, Florida, Texas. Ooh, I've been there. Reston, Virginia. On one sheet, we have the distance sheet, and this looks like one of those things you'd see on a map, distances between hotels. And then we have an arrays tab. Let me come back to that one. This is 3 different arrays. And let me come back to this one. Here's a little bit of the context for what we're going to, well, let me wait on that too. Let me try to describe just at least briefly this context of an array. So if I go to my Visual Basic for this file, there's nothing here. I'm going to go ahead and create a sub. I'll call it initialize. initialize, is that the right spelling? Seems like there's, oh, there it is. Nice catch. Ah, that was good. Initialize. I mean, I guess I could have kept it misspelled, but that's good. That works. As we know, if we want to create a variable, we can say dim hotel as string. Let's do hotels, dim hotels as string. And then we can put something in the hotel, right? We can say hotels equal to Marriott, right? And then we can print it, debug.print hotels. All right, now if I run this, it'll print what we've put into that variable. It'll print it right here. And I can put it into a sheet. I can put it into a cell. I can do all kinds of fun stuff. What if I had a list of, let's say, I think is there 36? How many's here on this sheet? There's 36 hotels in this sheet right here on the distance sheet. What if I wanted to create a variable for each hotel? Well, one way to do it is this way, right? Dim hotels 1. Hotels 1 equals Marriott. Dim hotels 2 as string. Hotels 2 is equal to Sheraton. Dim hotels 3 as string. Hotels 3 equals what's another hotel? Super 8. Okay, we're starting to see how this could take a long time, right? Dim hotels 4 as string. Hotels 4 is equal to La Quinta. Anybody been to La Quinta? And then we'd have to print all of these out, right? Hotels 1, hotels 2, hotels 3, hotels 4. If I ran this, yeah, this works, right? I'm creating a variable for each one of these hotels. I'm individually putting in data into that variable, and then I'm individually printing those out. Well, it turns out that there's a better way to do this. Isn't that wonderful? And the way we can do this is we can say, let's create an array of variables. We can say dim hotels, and we can say, I want a certain number of hotels within parentheses, right? So we know this is an array variable if it has parentheses after the name. I'll say dim hotels as string. And once I create this array, we create an array just like we do a normal variable. We have to set this array variable to a specific data type. Now I can come in here and I've created a nickname for all these hotels using one array. So in effect, I actually don't need to create any of these. I can just create one line of code that creates an array, which is a collection of, a wide variety of variables. How about that? Are you impressed yet? Nice, nice. I like that, Grace. I like that. That was great. Can we make it a little bit longer maybe next time? Hold it out for like 4 or 5. Oh, as long as you, I mean, how long can you? Yeah, some audio. So, but what's different here is putting data in. So instead of saying hotels 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, Garrett, do you have a question first?
Yeah. It says 36. Is that because there's 36 hotel on that sign?
Yeah, good question.
Like if there's like 1,000, a 1,000.
We could do whatever we wanted to. Yeah. I mean, I actually don't know. I actually don't know what the limit is. Is that crazy? Overflow. Okay, doesn't like it. It's too many. I've never figured that out. What is the limit of the number of arrays? It's an interesting idea. But yeah, we could do probably, my guess, 5,000 probably works. Let's try that. Yeah, 5,000 works. Could we do, okay, anyways, but whatever that limit is, don't get me too, I mean, I would be interested to find that out. We could do 5,000, but, trick question here. The way that an array works is that it starts at 0. Isn't that weird? The first array starts at 0. So if we wanted to fill hotels 1, let me go back to this example here, 36 for a second. That first variable in the list of 36 that we created is actually 0. And it turns out then, if it starts at 0, how many is this going to create? 37.
Oh, okay, so that one.
Right? Because you got hotels 1, then you can do a hotels 0, hotels 1, hotels 2, all the way up to hotels 36, right? So if I have 36 hotels over here in the sheet, which is what we're going to use, I actually only need to put here 35 because that gives me the 36 variables. There's only 35?
I mean, 0 to 30.
No, there's.
Correct. Correct.
6, but it's
Correct. Exactly right.
So if there was like 15 or 14.
Correct. That's right. And not all programming languages do this, but this is what VBA does. And the reason is, if we remember back to what a variable is just a nickname in the memory, right? That's all it is. A variable is like a nickname in the memory. What that 0 means is that's the first it's like an offset. It's like in the memory, right here is where this variable begins. And that's what the 0 is. That's where the memory is that's where the variable is in memory, is right there at the beginning of this long line of variables. So 0 is basically the offset to where it is in memory, the location of that variable. It's at the very beginning, which is 0. So that's why it's 0. So if I wanted 36 variables of hotels, I can come in here and say dim hotels 35 as string. And I can either come in here and type each one in like this. This has to be 35 because I don't have a 36 anymore. And this would work, right? I could print these out. But one of the great things about arrays is that we don't even have to do this much. Because now that we have an expression, now that we have a number as a part of the name, we can use the power of loops to fill arrays and to print them, right? We don't actually have to go through and type every single one of these out. We could if we wanted to, right? Just like I did here, we can run this and this code works. I can manually type these in if I needed to, but there's a faster way. So what is this way? So let's look at this. Let's do a loop. Let's do dim x as integer, integer, and let's create a loop where we say for x, let's see, how complex should we make this? Let's do for x is equal to 0 to 35. We'll put our next in. We're just going to create a for loop, right? Debug. Well, first we'll fill it. Maybe we should fill this first. Let's do hotels x. Notice how we're using the x as the integer for, like, the reference for the hotels variable. Hotels x is equal to distance. Distance is the name of this sheet right here. That's the code name and the tab name, which is kind of convenient, right? If we come up here, we can see distance is both the tab name and the code name. So we'll refer to distance dot cells. And so in this distance sheet, let's take the names of the hotels from column A. And so cells is asking for a row index. Let me go up to the top. This is the first row. This is the second row. Because we want to start in the second row, because we're using X as our counter, what if we did X plus 2 as the row index? Does that make sense? So 0, the first time this runs, this is going to be 0 plus 2. This is going to be row 2. 1, 2. That's the one we want right there. And then for the column, we're going to use column 1. This is the first column, so I'll do comma 1 dot value. And what we've done here is now we are going to put every one of these hotel names into its own variable based on this index that we just created through this for loop. And now we can come down here and then we can do another loop that says for x equal, and this is just for, I mean, you would, realistically, there's different ways to do this loop. I'll just repeat the loop so we can see what this looks like when we print it out. We can do debug dot print hotels x, and that's going to print it out. So here's one loop to put the value from the spreadsheet into the variable 0 to 35. And then here's another loop that says, okay, now let's go print it. Let's print this out, hotels x. So if I run this, let me take this one out below here. I've got check your next. So I have a 4. I have 2 for loops. I have 2 nexts. And if I run this, let me delete my immediate window. And I'll hit F5 and run it. There we have. We've just printed out, saved, and then printed out all of the hotels listed in the sheet into individual variables in this array, right? So this is an array of variables. We put the value into the array and then we print it out. In fact, when we print this, let's do x comma hotels, and that will erase. Let me erase this, go back here. That'll tell us what the x value is for each hotel. There we go. So now we have 0. That's our index number for our array, and the value of the array is hotels x, and it's printing all those names in a list like that. Okay, we're check neighbor check. Tell your neighbor, I got this, neighbor. Or say, you know what, to be honest, neighbor, I'm not really paying attention and I'm doing something completely different and I'll figure it out on my own time, but thank you for your help. I mean, I think that's a fair, if that's you right now, I've been there. I've been there.
Yeah.
You know, we can relate. We can relate to that. Okay, so that is the basics of the array. Question, comment, concern.
So the X represents the number, right?
That's right. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that amazing? This is so cool. So you don't have to create 36 different variables manually. You can create an array. You can automatically put stuff into the array. You can automatically print stuff out. That's pretty cool. That's pretty powerful. Okay, great. So given this background, here's what I think the task is for today. Let's say that you are recently hired to work for Starwood. So Starwood is the parent company for a whole bunch of hotels, right? Sheraton, all of these. The Westin, Sheraton Suites. There's one called W. Where's W? W San Francisco. It's a really nice one. W Seattle. I've actually been to a W in Mexico once, which was really nice. Yeah, it was a work trip. It's like nice. That was nice. Still remember that. That was nice. And let's pretend that you've been hired. Let's say you've been hired full time. You're going to start work in August. Nobody knows you're hired yet. And your boss says, I want you to go to these 36 hotels, kind of in the Western region, right? I just want you to go tour these 36 hotels as a new employee. And I just want you to observe what's going well with each one of these hotels, which hotel is having problems, and then come back when you begin work on the first day of your work, when you start in a couple months, we'll talk about what you've learned and where we need to go with each of these hotels, right? So this is kind of like a scouting trip, a free paid, go visit all these hotels. And he says, hey, you know what? Why don't you just go ahead and take your family? We'll give you a rental van. Take the next 3 months and go to all of these hotels, and all expense pays. We'll pay for your hotel. We'll pay for your vans. We'll pay for your food. This is part of your onboarding experience to come investigate all these hotels, right? One of the questions that you would have is, which hotel do you go to next, right? This is the classic traveling salesman problem, right? In the world of in the world of operations research, in the world of and there's a couple different worlds. There's a mathematical world. This is the age-old question of, what is the shortest route to all of these hotels? Anybody know how to figure out this problem? We gotta study the rate. Yeah, very good. Does anybody know how many different route possibilities there are? There's a lot. In fact, let's look at that for a second. Let me create a new sheet. The number of route possibilities is this number here called factorial. And I think it's it's fact 36. There's 36 hotels. If we take the factorial of 36, that's how many different route possibilities there are, okay? And let me see if I can show you this number like in real life. What does this number look like in real life? Doesn't even fit on the screen. Not really, no. Does anybody know how to say that number?
37.
Yeah, exactly. This is a big number. This, again, what is this? This is the number of route possibilities. This is the number of possible routes that you could take just with just 36 hotels, right? Okay, so here's one for you. Let's assume that if we took a computer to help us figure out what is the fastest route, and let's say it does 5,000 routes in a second, how long would it take to find that out? So if we take this and we divide by 5,000, we're still massive. We're still massive. What if we do what if we did this like 24 hours a day? Let's see, that's gonna be seconds. So we'll divide this by 60 to get minutes, and divide this by 60 again to get hours. And divide this again by 24 to get days. And then what if we did this for a whole year? Massive. Okay, what if we used what if we used 1,000,000 machines to do this? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, I still can't say that. I still can't say that number. I still don't know what that, I don't know what the word is to describe that number. What if we take the length of the universe, which is what, 20 billion years or something like that? Isn't this crazy? What is that 117? Is that billions? Trillions. Okay, I can finally say the number. So if we take the history of the Earth, and for every computer for the history of the Earth, it would take us this many trillions of Earths to really brute force the answer to investigating 36 hotels. What's the shortest path? In other words, in order to solve the problem, we're never going to solve this problem. There's no way for us to know for sure what the answer is. And so this problem has been around for centuries, multiple centuries, and it's going to be around for a long time, right? What they do commonly nowadays is they say, what is the next nearest hotel? We know that's not the right answer, though. We already know that even that is not going to give us the shortest distance. But it's good enough for now. And that's kind of what we're going to try to figure out is what is the next nearest hotel? And that gives us, I mean, that gets us pretty close, right? It won't be the shortest route, but that's what we're going to try to design. So the task for this sheet here, and we won't finish this today, we'll probably finish it next time, is to do that, is to come up with a route that says, if we start, let's start at, what is it, Salt Lake City? I think there's one in Salt Lake City. Let's start at Salt Lake City and we will say, what is the route we should take to go visit all these hotels? And that's the task. So if we go back to the arrays sheet, then what we have here is we are going to create 3 different arrays. One is this hotel list, and we basically already created that, right? Here's starting at 0, here's the hotel, and here's this array. This is one array. Hotel is one array that contains 36 hotels. We also have we're going to have a route array, and this is going to say, okay, if we start in Salt Lake City, which is the hotel 1, we'll use this route right here. Our first hotel is going to be number 1, index number 1, which is Salt Lake City. What's our next hotel going to be? I think it's going to be Vegas. I've done this a little bit, and so I think it's going to be the Vegas one. And that's the goal, is to try to figure out, okay, if we're at Vegas, which is now this hotel, what is the next shortest distance to the next hotel? And this is going to be our route. And at the end of this route, we will have visited every hotel. And then our third array that we're going to create is this 2-dimensional array, which is a distance array. This isn't just one column, right? A distance array is going to have 2 dimensions to it. It's going to be a 2-dimensional array, and it's going to capture all of the mileage here for every connection from every hotel. Okay, so that is the goal. Let's see, in order to do this, let's go back to our spreadsheet, our code here. So we have a hotels 35. We know what this is. We know how to do that. We've seen that already. We've created a hotels array. What else do we need? Let's create the route array. So let's do dim route. And we have 36 hotels. So we'll dim that as a route 35, 0 to 35 again, starts at 0. Let's go ahead and use the long data type for this one. And what should we set this route to? The default here is interesting. When we create the route array, it's going to create this, but all of these are going to be 0 because the default value for a long is 0. Does that provide any problems? Do you see any problems with that? There could be a problem with that, right? It could mean accidentally that we think we're referencing back to this Los Angeles downtown hotel because that's index 0. So maybe what we should do is we should come in here and say, as a part of setting this up, what if we said route, and let's do this under our loop here. What if we came here and said route X equal to, what should we say? Something, we could say something that's bigger than 36, right? We could do 42. That way that reduces the confusion. If in fact at some point we wanted to use this code for a hotel list longer than 36, that could be problematic. So what if we just did this? What if we said route X is equal to -1? How about that? Is that fair? That way we're saying we're going to set the entire route up in a way that this number right here is going to be -1 until we come back and fix it, right? Until we come back and reset this to what it should be. Let's just create this entire route array and put everything to -1. That way we know it's not a listed hotel. Okay. Let's go. In fact, let's even go beyond this. If we wanted to do more than 36 hotels, we would need to figure out what the count was. So let's do that. Let's do a hotel count, dim hotel count as long. And then let's count. How do we count the hotels? Well, we go back to our hotel count equals. We're going to figure this out. We're going to go back to our distance sheet. And let's take the range A2. We'll start in range A2 because if I look at the distance sheet, that's the first hotel. So range A2. And let's go down. So we'll use the end Excel down option. And we'll get the row. What is the row of that end Excel down? So if I were to include this up in my immediate window, it says 37. What does that mean? So if I do here and I do control arrow down, that is 37, but I actually need to account for, what do I need to account for? Is there 37 hotels here or are there 36? I actually need to subtract 1. If I subtract 1, that will give me the correct count, right? If I start at A32 and I go down, the row there is 37. That's the 37th row. And so I've got to correct that by subtracting 1. So I'll subtract 1 from that, and that will give us the hotel count. Now that we have the hotel count, we can do this thing, which is really cool. One of the things we can do when we set up an array is we can take out the number when we set it up. We can just say dim hotels, open and close parentheses, as string. This tells Excel, it says I want an array, but I'm not going to tell you how many variables I want to put in that array yet. I'm not going to tell you. You're going to have to wait. And I can come down here to the actual program and I can say redim. And this is something pretty specific to arrays. Redim hotels. And I can say, give me the hotel count. But I have to do what? I have to subtract 1 here also because it starts at 0, right? I know there's 36 hotels from this line. This line will give me 36. But I'm going to subtract 1 because I know that arrays start with 0. They start at 0, so I'm going to take 1 off. That's why I'm doing a subtract 1 there. When I redim this, that means when the program is actually running, it will create the number of variables in that array. That's what that redim is for, is to recreate the number of variables in that hotel's array. And let's do the same thing for route. So I'll do redim route, and I'll say hotel count -1. Okay, great. Here's an interesting one. Now what we're going to do is we're going to need to use a couple of different subs for this activity. Let me close this down so we can see a little bit better. Let me see if I can raise this up a little bit so we can see a little bit better. We're going to have to use a couple different subs. This sub is initialize. I'd like to create a couple more subs. One of the things we can do here, which I don't think we've seen yet, is we can take these 2 variables that we just created and we can put them above the sub, outside of the sub. We can create these variables outside of the sub. And what that's going to do is that's going to allow for these array variables to be used by multiple subs in this module, right? So any other sub that's created on this page in this module 1, they're going to have access to these variables, which is pretty cool. So we're going to dim hotels as string outside the sub. We're going to dim route as long outside the sub. We're going to redim them inside the sub for this particular sub. And now any other sub that we have are going to have access to these variables. And the other thing we need to do here is we need our distance array, right? So we have, here's the arrays we're going to use. We have our hotel, we have a route, and now we're going to do our distance array. This one we'll also do outside. We'll do dim dist, and let's do integer. because we're not going to have any hotel that's more than 32,000 miles apart, right? What's the circumference of the Earth? It's like less than that, 24,000, something like that. So integer should work here. We'll dim dist as integer outside the sub. So this will be available to other subs. Every sub in this module. If I create another module, it would not, doesn't share across modules. This is a module level variable. It's an array variable. And then when we come down into the sub itself, let's redim this dist. And we can do redim dist. We could hard code it, right? If we did 35, 35, that's going to give us a two-dimensional array. So there's two numbers there now. There's a 35, comma 35. That's in order to get this two-dimension array. These are one dimension. This is two-dimension array, right? It has rows and columns. So I can do that hard-coded, or I can come in here and say hotel count -1, comma, hotel count -1. What do you think so far? Good question. Why are we doing -1? Yeah, that's this -1 up here. That first row didn't have any information. What's this -1 down here? Yeah, very good. If we kept this, if we didn't have the 0, 1, we would actually have an array from 0 to 36, which would be a total of 37 variables. We just need 36. So arrays start with counting at 0. And so because of that, we're taking -1. Good question. Garrett and then Chris.
35.
If you want to hard code that in, you could. This is going to allow you to change the hotel count. For the purposes of this exercise, 35, comma 35 is probably going to work. We're not going to be changing hotels. But this will make your code so that you added or subtracted. If you added or took out hotels, if they sold a hotel or if they bought another hotel, you wouldn't have to change the code. It would automatically count it. Please, Chris, and then Cody.
So if that's the case, we use the hotel count to added, we do not want to use that for the, that we have right now. So when you're at 35, you stop at 35, over here. Make that hotel count.
Well, we did right here. Is that what you mean?
So like the for loops.
Oh, in the for loop, 0 to 35. Yeah, that's a good point. Absolutely. Very cool. Very good. That's really good. Yeah, we would want to change these too. For x equals 0 to, what would it be? Beautiful. Hotel count -1. Excellent. And I want to change this one too. We'll probably get rid of this one in a second. I'll go ahead and change it. Hotel count -1. Okay, great. Good catch, Chris. Cody. Oh, nice. Okay, great. Okay, so now what's next? Let's go grab some data. So we've set this up. Let's go grab some data. So for hotels, we've got this here, right? We've set up our route -1. We've set up the hotels. We've put data into the hotels list. Should we just run this and see where we're at here? Let me check. Let's run this. And if I run this, we should see the list up here at the top. Let's just check your neighbor. Neighbor, tell your neighbor if you can get this far. If you've created this variable arrays, hotels, route, and dist, you're filling the hotels array, and then you're printing out that hotels array. In fact, we can even go one further and say route X, and that would print out whoops, what was that? Route X. That should print out -1 next to all of these hotels up here, because that's the -1 that we changed in the route. So we're checking our -1 with our route X. We're checking the name of the hotels with the hotels X, and we're checking our X for that loop when we print it out. Okay, take 30 seconds, neighbor. Tell your neighbor where you're at. Ready, set, go. If you're VBA master, your neighbor is you picked the right place to sit in this class. Way to sit. VBA master. If your neighbor chooses not to talk to you, don't take it personally.
Our other neighbors.
Okay, great. Let's see. Let's see if we can do a couple more minutes on this, and then we'll see if we can break around 3 o'clock and transition to some project work. That sound good? Okay, so we've done this. Let's see, what's our next step? We've put data into the route array. We've put data into the hotels array. Let's put some data into the dist array. And let's think about this one. This is a pretty interesting one, actually. How do we put some data into the dist? We actually are going to need another variable because there's a column and a row, right? X so far has been our only variable for counting because we've just gone down the array in essence, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We actually need another variable. Let's do dim y as integer. And we need another loop. So once we're inside of this first loop, we're going to need another loop for y is equal to and how do we want to do this? Let's use y as like a row count, a column count. So let's do x, whatever x is plus 1, to hotel count minus 1. That's going to be our loop inside of a loop. If I select these lines and kind of tab it over, that helps me keep track of my for loops, right? I have a for loop inside of another for loop. And what we want to do is we want to create inside the dist array, we want to fill this dist array. So if x is 0 and y is 1, what would the value be? Well, we're going to take from the distance sheet. Let me pull up my distance sheet so we can peek over there. We're going to start to fill in these numbers inside of this array. So let me see if I can pull this back over just a little bit. Here's our first one right there, right? This is going to be what? This is going to be, what cell is this? This is row 2, column 3. So if I did distance.cells 2, 3 dot value, it would put this 691 into the array. And that would be what? That would be array x is 0, y is 1. Is that what it is? Because y is x plus 1 here. So 0, 1, which makes sense because 0, 0 is going to be blank, right? So 0, 0 would be blank. 0, 1 is moving to this column here. So that's correct. I think we want dist 0, 1 to be equal to distance.cells 2, 3. This is the second row, third column, dot value. So let's see if we can translate this back to variables. So this is going to be y. This is going to be x. So dist xy is equal to distance.cells. We want this to be 2. And x is our variable for our rows. So the first time this runs, x is going to be 0. So what if we did 2 plus x? Right? Every row we go down, 1, 2. The next one's going to be 1, 2, 3. The next one's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 2 plus x. So that's going to go down every row starting on row 2, which is what we want. And then for the columns, we want this to go column by column, right? So we would want to do 3, column 3, but y is our variable for the columns. Y is going to be 1 when this first starts, x plus 1. So let's say if y is 1 and we want column 3, then let's say 2 plus y. How about that? If we add 2 to y, every time we run this, it's going to give us another column. Boom, 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 boom. So what this is saying is this, the higher or the outside for loop is the rows, and the second for loop, the inside for loop, this for the y, is our columns. And once we're inside of both for loops, we're going to fill this dist array with these values. Okay, so let's try that. And let's try to do this instead of debugging. Let me comment this out. Let's do debug.print. And let's do dist. Actually, let's just stop it right there, and then we'll print from the immediate window. How about that? We'll stop right there, and we'll run this far, and we'll see how we get. So I'm going to take out my immediate window, go to my code, run this. I've stopped. Go back to my immediate window, question mark, and we can test all these, right? Route 5, -1. Sweet. What is hotels 3? Which one on this list is going to be hotels 3? Which one would you expect? It starts with 0, right? So we have to do 0, 1, 2, 3. Scottsdale. That's the one we expect. Bingo. Got it. W at Scottsdale. Perfect. And then finally, let's do dist. And at this point, all we're going to have is these numbers here. We're not going to have the blank ones yet. We'll see if we can do that next time. The ones, oh, well, we'll see what we do in just a second. We are going to have this one. So let's see if we can find dist, second row, third column. So if I do 2, 3, what do we expect to see there? Second row, third column. We expect to see the distance is 691. Wait, 12. Does it say 12 to you? Did you guys get 12 as well, or is it just me? Cody got 12. Okay, that says this is the 12 over here. Why did we get that 12? Seems like that should not be 12. What are we missing here? Okay, let's do this. Let's come up here and let's do a stop inside of this one and see what it says the first time. So I'll stop my code and I'll put another stop here. I'll run this. It got to here. So x is 0, y is 1. So if I say dist, x is 0, y is 1, 691. Oh, okay. So we put the 0, 1 on this number here, 691. Okay, so maybe that was just an error in our, the 2, 3. When we put a 2, 3, what does that actually mean? That doesn't mean the second row in the third column of the sheet. The 2, 3 means what? Of the array. Yeah, very good. Excellent. So which one is the second row, third column of the array? And you have to remember, we start at what number? Start at 0. That's right. So this 2 is actually referring to which row? 0, 1, 2. It's referring to this row, right? This is the row of the dist array. That's the second, that's number 2, 0, 1, 2. The 3 is referring to which column? 0, 1, 2, 3. Right? A little bit confusing because it's starting with 0. So dist 2, 3, that's this row, right here, and this column right here, that is 12. That's what we expect is 12. We actually haven't gotten there yet because I did a stop here. So it was correct. So if I take out this stop and I hit run or play, that'll run to this stop. We come back up to the dist 2, 3, and it should be 12, which is what we'd expect, right? The 2, 3, again, does not refer to cells 2, 3, like on a normal spreadsheet. It refers to 2, 3 of the multi-dimensional array dist. And at this point where we are stopped, we should be able to test for any of these down here, right? So if I did dist 20, let's do 2233. What is 2233? 648. Which one's that? That's way over here. So if I did this, this says 33. That's 33 columns. If I go back to my code, can I go back to my code? 33 columns. Is that the right one? So 2 648s? No, that's the one. These are all 648s. Oh, interesting. So just to remember, these two numbers are not like cells, rows, and columns. These are actually within that array. So everybody do this with me. Dist 2233. See if you get 648 and tell your neighbor. What's your dist 2233? And see if you get 648. Compile error. Okay, let me come look at that. Here's one last step here, and then we'll do some projects, and I'll come look at some stuff. What we've done so far is we've taken this code, all these numbers that are on the right-hand side of this, but we still want, because it's just going to be easier when we look down the code to say, let's fill these blank ones in. What we can do when we're running this step right here is we can come back and say the dist for the opposite of that, y comma x, is equal to the dist of the x and y we just set up. Isn't that crazy? So if we add this line to our code, we're just going to put this number in the spreadsheet in here into the variables, if that makes sense. That's all we're doing here with this line, is we're going to flip it. Say, now that we have an xy dist, we're going to say, put that in the yx position. So we have the full table in our arrays, in the dist array. So now if I stop that and run this, then we should have dist 3322 should be the same, right? So you should have 648 for both of those. Okay, great. This is probably a great place to pause for this particular part of the array instruction. And then I'd like to spend the rest of the class just kind of working on project questions. Whoever has some questions, sound good? Or if somebody's not quite here yet on this one, I can help with this one. So if you've already done the project, don't feel like you have to stay. You're more than welcome to stay. But I do feel like it'd be helpful to have a little bit more project lab time using some of our class time today. Sound good? Okay, great. Let me, in fact, Justice, am I okay to stop recording now? Yes, please. Okay, great.